I want to start this video by prefacing this with the fact that I started this script back during episode 5 and continued it through episode 6. And even though a lot of what inspired it was the reception following 5, I still think it's something worth looking at. And that's the double standard of the digital circus. There is a double standard when it comes to the trauma babies of the digital circus. And it involves fan favorite Jax and self-imposed bestie Ragatha. And it's only become more apparent in the last 2 episodes. Now, this isn't everyone, of course, but let me tell you, with the amount of swinging and reception these two have been getting, you'd think they're on a teeter-totter, and they sort of are. We love Jax. We love Ragatha. Ragatha stepped out of line, she's not good. Wait, actually, no, her crash out was valid. And actually, yes, she's having a hard time. Jax is a jerk. No, wait, he's actually just understood. Wait, no, he's bullying. Well, he's coping. Is that good or bad? A swinging pendulum back and forth that ends up landing squarely on... Ragatha is a pretty flawed individual, but she has a reason for it, and Jax is actually a broken man who is just mean because he's afraid to trust. Well, from what I've seen. And who knows how much that's changed in the last couple of weeks. The reception surrounding both these characters has been mixed. Jax is a constant fan favorite who is chronically redeemed every time he shows an ounce of humanity, while Ragatha has bouts of negative reception, such as during her breakdown in episode 5, which was basically appeased after her breakdown in episode 6. And let me add that the responses to these characters aren't without merit. There's actually a reason why these characters are so polarizing. And having certain actions change an audience's perspective is a given. I myself have some mixed swinging feelings about them too. And that's what we're discussing today, the sort of competition and double standard of Jax and Ragatha, what caused it, and how it affects both characters in the long run. I'm going to be diving a little bit, but it's going to be mostly on the situation, so I'm not directly analyzing the scenes in this one. Like, I'm not going to analyze the bathroom scene, I'm just covering it more generally, and I'm assuming you've seen episode 5 and 6 already. However, I would like to leave a disclaimer here. For the record, I like both Ragatha and Jax a lot. I think Ragatha fell off for a long while, and I feel like Jax occasionally has really try-hard moments, but I don't actively dislike either of them, and I say this because I do see a lot of the assessment of certain fan-favorite characters, not just in the digital circus fandom, but in general, throughout the internet, most assessment of characters getting lumped in with criticism. Let me be blunt. When I say Jax is a jerk, it isn't because I think he's a bad character or I hate him. That's just my read on the character. And when I say some particularly spicy takes on Ragatha later, it's not because I hate her either. And I'm not biased towards her either. I know I once labeled her best girl, but obviously there is no best girl or best guy. There's only Zooble, with Kinger following up as best dad. This is also not a criticism of the writing of the digital circus, it's just an analysis. I'm just saying there's a double standard there, but I'm not necessarily saying that the double standard shouldn't exist or that the fact that there is a double standard is bad writing. So let's start with a little once-over of the characters where I can express the good, the bad, and the ugly. Starting with Ragatha. Ragatha is the nice one, or the friendly one, of the group. That's coined by Jax. And always puts on a cheery demeanor to deal with her fear of abstraction and years of abuse at the hands of a domineering mother. Because of this, Ragatha chronically seeks validation, which makes her come off as insincere. And honestly, at times Ragatha is insincere, as she spends more energy trying to be false bubbly with fake pleasantries, trying to get people to like her, than making an effort to bond. And it could be that at her core, Ragatha has attachment issues. She is both very clingy, especially to Pomni, but also detached in the sense that she doesn't want to really engage. Other than that, we get shockingly little about old Yarnhead here. Everything's so guarded, and we get so little time that basically she's a shut book. It took her getting stupid on Sauce before we were able to learn some basic things such as how she longs for romance, or someone to flirt with her, and how she sometimes finds Gangle annoying. 2 facts that seem small but actually deliver a lot more on her in that one moment than most of the previous 2 episodes. Because a lot of her screen time is, ooh, Pomni, look at the new adventure. Well, hi, NPC, it's nice to meet you. Owie, Jax, you hurt my feelings. Okay, that's not right. More like, Jax, I'm trying to be nice here, but you sucking cluck, and I want to put an ice pick through your head. Oh, sorry. In fact, on that note, the most animated Ragatha gets is in her fights with Jax, as she stands out as one of his only targets who fights back. Gangle being too timid, and I don't really count Zooble as a target when they're only occasionally messed with. Part of the reason I believe Ragatha gets some flack from the audience, but not the only reason, I'll cover the bigger reason later, is because of how ingenuine she feels. With Jax being so outwardly abrasive, he comes off as the honest one, even though it becomes clear quickly that that's not the case. And with her being the character of the lot with the least time to shine, with Gangle, Zooble, and Kinger all having deeply intimate self-realizing moments, and her not until episode 6, and that even being a bit more abbreviated, it makes sense that viewers didn't make the same attachment. My problem with Ragatha is that from episode 2 onward, like I mentioned earlier, her unhealthy attachment with Pomni became almost her entire character trait. And I get that's the point, but also it gets annoying. Maybe that's on purpose, but I don't think, God, I wish she would literally do anything else, was the point, since Pomni only expresses a little annoyance in episode 2 and maybe 5. I'm sure that doesn't help matters that her whole drive is to be pushy to Pomni, to the point where she pushes her towards Jax, and then gets clingy over her when she tries to reach out to him. But since for the last few episodes we've seen her nudging for Pomni's attention, it comes off less as genuine concern and more as neediness and envy. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's not a good look. And so I can address it now. During episode 4, I mentioned that Ragatha was a bit two-faced. And some might see that as me trying to jump on her. But actually at the time, I sort of admired Ragatha for having more colorful personality traits, since the whole Pomni thing became so prevalent. It's a crying shame that the whole thing was her just being drunk, though. But moving on to Jax. Jax is the cool jerk. He labels himself as the funny one, but he's the only one laughing at his sense of humor, as it usually involves aggressively lashing out at others. Whether it be smashing Mangle's mask, tossing her around, shoving her around, bullying her, teasing her, shooting Ragatha at point-blank range, tossing her into a deep fryer, tossing Pomni out of a moving truck, tossing bowling balls, tossing knives, Jax is a menace, and most of the time, his gags aren't funny. What the audience has eagerly taken to instead is his snarky disposition, with him having nearly a dozen quotable quotes throughout the series' runtime. So yeah, Jax is the favorite. He's a bit of a loner too, but less that he fully secludes himself and more that instead of engaging with others, he tends to use them as props in his next routine. Now, I've seen people refer to Jax as abusive, and honestly, I think that's dead on. Yeah, Jax is actively, physically assaulting his castmates on the daily. Just because they can't die doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. And he takes glee out of it. And he likes doing it on an emotional level too, eagerly tearing others down. Such as Gangle, his constant target. But since Gangle doesn't look as human, it doesn't look so bad when he's beating up on her. But Jax is also the kind of bully who basically picks on the weak. Everyone's free game, but he especially targets the vulnerable, such as Gangle and Ragatha. A good example of this is with Zooble, who will fight back, and as such the two are occasionally on civil terms. And Pomni, who starts out in the series as a punching bag, but Jax lays off once he gets more interested in her. Such as in the newest episode where he befriends Pomni, only for it to eventually lead to a fight where Jax lays down that he doesn't care about her, or anyone, he wouldn't mourn her if she abstracted, and generally sees her as a means to an end, in a few words. But he doth protest too much. It turns out he might have caught feelings. He might actually care. No, he doesn't, but maybe he's just afraid. Yes, afraid. No, not afraid of anything. He doesn't care. He doesn't feel. But maybe he does. Which, if I'm blunt, makes Jax's action a bit worse. At least if he lacked empathy or truly believed what he was saying, we could understand where he was coming from. But the idea that he's capable of introspection and regret makes his constant tormenting of everyone else much more willing. And no, his behavior isn't just because of grief. It was revealed in episode 5 that Jax had a friend who abstracted. One who wasn't named in the show but has been revealed to have been named Ribbit. But if Jax only started acting out after his friend abstracted, someone would have mentioned it. The tone wouldn't be, don't trust Jax. It would be, Jax used to be different. He wasn't always like this. The others would probably be encouraging Jax to make a new friend. No, I think he's been like this the whole time. He just lost his possible partner in crime, and when Gangle doesn't scratch the itch of a replacement, he sets his sights on Pomni, especially since it ticks Ragatha off. Jax can be a jerk and be lonely, but that doesn't suddenly mean he's redeemed. Up until this point, we've never seen Jax show any sort of emotion that isn't self-involved, and even the crash out in the bathroom is hard to read. Is it truly guilt, or is it because he lost his new buddy? Regret or self-pity? And that doesn't make Jax a bad character, he's actually pretty complex. But he is a bad person. A little regretty spaghetti doesn't excuse everything he's done, especially when he's not really sorry. He might be sorry that he upset Pomni, but he's definitely not sorry that he's been chronically tormenting Gangle. Heck, he was planning on doing that again before he got saddled with Pomni. Now, hearing that, you might think that I'm saying that Jax is an irredeemable monster, but I'm not. I'm saying that Jax is, at this point, an extremely flawed individual. He's awful, to everyone. There's always a chance of redemption, but not without change or action. It's not enough that he feels bad, he has to do good to make up for it. But the reason I'm doubtful is both because of how Gooseworks, the creator, has talked about Jax, saying that he's truly awful and that he deserves to be in the circus, and possibly that we haven't seen the worst of him yet, but also because Jax himself doesn't really show any interest in change. When confronted by something that may change his way of thinking, he doubles down. And this is important to keep in mind when discussing Jax moving forward. Jax could be better. He has the full capability of making that decision, but so far he hasn't. Now, these two characters seem like complete opposites, but there's a lot of parallels between them. Ragatha is overly nice, Jax is overtly cruel. Ragatha wants to befriend everybody, Jax sees everyone as a target. Ragatha is fixated on what people think about her, Jax too, but more so takes a glee in the impact he leaves. Ragatha needs to be loved, Jax loves to be hated. For the most part in both cases, but this has led to more direct comparisons. I've seen the memes, like compare these two pictures, I see the same thing, and I see why it may look that way, but it actually isn't. This would be trying to levy Ragatha's forced kindness and Jax actively tormenting everyone as being the same thing, but it definitely isn't. It may come from the same form of coping, but it is very different. Ragatha is desperate and Jax is denial. Ragatha is need and Jax is indulgence, and while yes, they are equally problematic, there is a pretty sizable difference between being disingenuous and being malicious. And yet, Jax gets a lot of leeway. For example, Jax often lashes out at everyone, gladly. He says cruel things, he does cruel things, and he doesn't think twice. But recently, Ragatha said something that was not so nice. She slips and mentions Jax's friend who abstracted. She apologizes right away, but it was a low blow, even if she didn't intend for it to be. This led to Ragatha's biggest backlash, the big one. The one that got everyone rethinking Ragatha as this nice girl and instead as someone as cruel as Jax, or at least who had a real catty side hidden away. And that only intensified when she later explodes on Jax, an explosion that Jax, as we see, barely reacts to. Pomni isn't exactly on board, but Jax kinda really doesn't care. The only time he budges is when she apologizes about his friend again. But this episode and these scenes led to the big Ragatha pushback that lasted, admittedly, only one episode. It has softened since 6. I have seen defenses crop back up again. Which means that her big sad moment with Kinger has redeemed her, and now she's finally on the good side again, while Jax is still right there in the good corner, Pat the Bunny. The good bad guy corner. So why is it, and I don't mean everybody of course, but why do we see a lot of support for Jax and pushback on Ragatha whenever she steps out of line? And I mean mostly before episode 6's Jax breakdown. Well, one of the biggest things that led to this imbalance between the characters is how the show itself has treated them throughout the series, and looking back, yeah, there has been marked favoritism. And that is that Ragatha is an upfront background character and Jax is the face of the franchise. Look back throughout the episodes and you'll notice that Ragatha specifically, and chronically, has been present, but not doing anything. Barely getting any moments that aren't just, by the way, she's here. While Jax is set up to have a dramatic scene-stealing moment in every episode, usually multiple. Here's some examples. Episode 2, Jax basically drives the plot with his constant wacky antics, tossing Pomni, the gun, stealing the key, and plotting the demise of the Candy Kingdom, all while Ragatha takes a backseat. During the funeral, Ragatha is one of the many who talk, something that is started by Jax's unreadable look and absence. Episode 3, Ragatha and Jax both take a step back, but Jax kickstarts the plot with his antics and has the tied-up scene. While Ragatha is assumed to be the one who tied him up, we don't see it, so the defining character here is the Grumpy Bunny. Grumpy Bunny always wins over Ragatha's placation during the Pomni appreciation scene. Episode 4, Ragatha is drunk for the entire episode while Jax goes through a slew of events, from being re-educated, to lashing out, to giving up, to actually showing signs of being civil with both Zooble and Pomni, all the while Ragatha is mostly incohesive. Funny joke, but character-wise, Jax has more stuff going on. Nowhere is this more clear than in episode 5 and 6, which are the Ragatha and Jax episodes, and yet, in both of the episodes, Jax is given a huge focus while Ragatha gets some stolen scenes in between moments. Okay, like, remember when Ragatha is giving a brief backstory about her life, and then the scene immediately swipes away to show Jax's reaction despite the fact that Jax, by all accounts, never seems interested or receptive in Ragatha's backstory? That's kind of everything, really. Ragatha and Jax are in a constant competition, and it's one that Jax always wins. Ragatha's crash out was overshadowed by Jax's reveal of his lost friend and his merch-worthy maid outfit moment. Ragatha's moment with Kinger is completely overshadowed by Jax's crash out a little while later, and Jax's crash out in the bathroom is a real crash out compared to Ragatha's brief fit at the baseball game. Ragatha's backstory is overshadowed by Jax and Korn. Even when the show isn't purposefully doing it, Jax is always stealing a scene, and Ragatha's best scenes are always Jax adjacent. And I'm not saying this is intentional by the writers. I think this comes with the characters we're dealing with. Ragatha is the goody gumdrop and Jax is the bad boy. And in recent times especially, reception to characters like these always leans towards the bad boy. Jax, even before he showed a shred of being anything other than a jerk, was already being clocked as having the sad, tragic backstory that explained everything. Heck, I fell for it too, but as the show goes on, Jax himself seems to take full advantage of this because he's allowed to get away with more awful things, using his shield of being secretly broken to deflect any real criticism. Something he seems to actually be aware of in a meta sense, considering that he brings it out during the fallout with Pomni. Meanwhile, Ragatha, who scolds Jax and wants to be good and nice and follow the rules, ends up looking like the villain. This is only emphasized and worsened when Ragatha tries to keep Jax from Pomni, both because she comes off as controlling, and because by keeping Pomni from Jax, she keeps the audience away from Jax as well. We don't get to learn more about him because Pomni is the central character and she can't get close. And she is controlling, but also this is Jax. His closest buddy is Gangle. Ragatha might have had a point in holding Pomni back, especially since Zooble seems to warn Pomni as well. But Ragatha is not doing herself any favors. See, while Jax is consistently a jackass, what was done with Ragatha's character didn't help her win any fans. In the first episode, Ragatha was kinda portrayed as this big sisterly type who's afraid of abstraction, not entirely willing to take Jax's stunts, but otherwise pretty chill. And here we go, we're going right back to what I was talking about earlier. Time to complain about this again. Starting with episode 2, she begins the fake nice Pomni obsession arc, one that just keeps dragging on and on and on. It's not just that the show isn't giving her any moments. Her actual characterization is hard to attach to when she comes off as so dry and fluffy at times. And when she breaks that character, she never looks great. I mean, I can appreciate the dichotomy of the Gangle being annoying when she's happy scene, but that can also make Ragatha seem pretty mean, and considering that Gangle later says that she thinks Ragatha isn't genuine, yeah, it starts painting a picture. Because we don't really have any moments that go up against that. And like I said, there is the liar aspect. Ragatha is disingenuous, so she is deemed as a liar, while Jax, since he is outward with his feelings, is seen as more honest. But the thing is that Jax being blunt isn't necessarily being more honest. Jax is clearly hiding and shielding too. He, like Ragatha, is hiding his true self behind a persona at the other side of the spectrum. The difference is that while Ragatha is coming off as phony and off-putting, Jax is actively making others miserable. He is actively hurting people, especially Ragatha. While Gangle is the main target, I don't know, Jax seems to have a lot more aggression towards Ragatha. And he seems to be content and upping the ante, only showing remorse when his new buddy isn't happy to play along. It's concerning. Now, I'm sure at the end of this you might think that my point is Ragatha good, Jax bad. Stop being mean to Ragatha. Jax deserves to get strung up by his non-existent tail. But that's not it. I mean, true, Jax is bad. He does bad things, he does cruel and malicious things, and framing him as being more victim than villain is a mischaracterization. He is a villain, but he has chosen to be. And yes, while we're seeing something new, that doesn't negate everything we've seen already. He could change, but will he? In what, like 2-3 episodes? Maybe, maybe not. Depends on if Gooseworks' statements about Jax were flavor text or a warning. No, what I'm trying to say is that I don't think one goodish or emotional moment on Jax's part totally changes what he is. Just like one bad moment or selfish scene from Ragatha doesn't change what she is. Jax and Ragatha aren't a singular moment. They are characters comprised of every moment throughout the show, and while a scene might seemingly recontextualize them, it doesn't change everything else that we see. But also, because one character gets so many more moments, they stand higher on the pedestal than the other. The point of this was to actually take a deeper look at how we can get so beguiled by the charm of one character and the admitted falterings of another that we're willing to look past the red flags with their rose-colored glasses and see a situation switched. Ragatha isn't a scene-stealing, smirking face, and because of that, when she falters, she doesn't have the personality backing it up, both because she hides it and because the show itself isn't really interested in it. And yes, Jax does get away with a lot of his behavior just because he's got an abrasive charm to him. It's okay to like Jax and acknowledge that he is very, very toxic, even if it means coming to terms with the idea that there is no center soft enough to make up for that without direct action. For the record, I do like the idea of a soft Jax, a Jax with a heart of gold hiding underneath. But after everything we've seen, I think that possibility is far out the door. I think at best, we can get a Jax doing one non-scummy thing for the finale that gives us the whole, well, I guess he wasn't so bad after all, feeling of what could have been. I'm just saying that don't get your hopes up too high on either account. These two are capable of change, but I don't think they're getting there unless it's like a life or death and it's coming fast. Am I surprised that these are the receptions these characters have gotten? No. Do I understand them? Yes. Do I genuinely think that making Ragatha and Jax have the same 2 episodes devoted to them sort of gave Ragatha the short end of the stick, pinning her up against the big dog when she couldn't cut it? Oh yes, but it happens. Sometime I plan on doing videos diving fully into both Ragatha and Jax, but I almost want to wait a little longer just to see where we're going with this. At the very least, it looks like both are finally stepping through their comfort zones, and that's going to make things a whole lot more interesting. Thank you for watching.